Hello and welcome to Last Time Studios. Before I begin, we would just like to say a big thank you to the massive amount of support the channel has had over the last several weeks. Hundreds of new subscribers, we can barely believe it. But if you're new or not subscribed, please hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps us to continue building the channel. Today, we're diving into aliens and looking at the first disastrous encounter the Marines have with the aliens. This scene is the turning point where Gorman's lack of experience becomes painfully clear and the situation spirals out of control. Let's take a deep dive into the sequence of events and the actions, or lack of actions, the Marines took. Hudson locates the colonists under the main cooling towers. The Marines saddle up, and within moments Vasquez is leading the squad, cautiously moving under the primary heat exchangers towards the colonists' location. Ripley quickly realizes the danger of firing in such a sensitive area and alerts Gorman. Despite being alerted to the risk, Gorman, with his limited combat experience, fails to devise a better strategy, unable to adapt his approach beyond simply restricting the Marines' firepower. His inexperience left him focused on minimizing immediate danger rather than considering an alternative approach or even a potential withdrawal. Gorman, possibly more fixated on getting the job done, orders the use of flame units only, no grenades or firing. The Marines, although skeptical, acknowledged the orders and passed their magazines to Frost, as instructed by Apone. Vasquez leads, followed by Hudson, then Drake covering the left flank, as the corridor opens into a wider space beneath the main cooling towers. The Marines are now face to face with the horrifying sight of colonists cocooned in the resinous walls. Apone reminds them they still have a job to do as they sweep the area. Dietrich finds one of the colonists still alive and calls out to Apone, reassuring the woman that they're going to get her out. Dietrich quickly realizes something is horribly wrong. The woman starts to convulse and a chest burster explodes from her body. Apone reacts swiftly, grabbing Frost's flamethrower and torching the creature. But this is when the aliens decide to strike, emerging from their camouflage in the walls. Hudson detects movement on his tracker but can't lock onto a specific signal. As the tension mounts, Apone barks orders, demanding Hudson give him a clear position for the movement. He orders them to switch to infrared, but by now the Marines are frantically checking their surroundings. Dietrich, scanning for threats, doesn't see the alien hidden in the wall directly in front of her. As she turns away, it grabs her, pulling her up towards the ceiling. In the struggle, Dietrich accidentally discharges her flamethrower, engulfing Frost in the flames. Frost falls from the platform, dropping the bag of magazines, which ignites in the fire. Frost's life signs flatline, and the subsequent explosion kills Kroll, while Wysbowski is thrown through the air. Hicks checks on Kroll, but finds him dead. Wysbowski cries out, but by the time Hicks turns to locate them, he's already been dragged away by the aliens. Vasquez, realizing the danger, opens fire, with Drake following suit. But Gorman, panicked and unable to control the chaos, fumbles with his commands to Apone. Even with partial instructions of a retreat, Sergeant Apone's failure to organize an immediate fallback may point to a personal flaw rooted in the strict adherence to military discipline. As a seasoned leader, Apone had likely been trained to follow orders to the letter from his superiors without question, which could have become a limitation when independent action was required in a high-pressure, very time-critical situation. His ingrained reliance on the chain of command, likely developed over years of regimented training, may have prevented him from taking the initiative to retreat, even when it became clear the Marines were in danger. This is similar to how a training issue identified in the classroom, like the lack of improvisational skills, is only corrected to a certain level. However, the underlying issue is still there. In Apone's case, his commitment to wait for Gorman's complete orders, despite the chaotic situation, furthered the disaster and slowed the retreat. God damn it, Drake may have lived. The distraction with communication allowed an alien to snatch Apone away, to be cocooned. Ripley, realizing the Marines are cut off due to the explosion and can't retreat the way they came. She quickly jumps into the driving seat of the APC in order to reposition for extraction. At this point, Gorman begins to blame shift, accusing Ripley of unauthorized actions as she takes control. Gorman, still unable to process the situation, tries to stop her. But in a brief struggle, Burke steps in, telling Gorman he's had his chance, a moment where Gorman has no choice but to step aside, out of fear, confusion. But it certainly seems he needs to follow Burke's word. This shows how Gorman's inexperience causes him to deflect responsibility, particularly towards Ripley. During this encounter, Gorman's psychological state deteriorates rapidly due to a combination of stress and inexperience. Faced with the chaos of the battle, he likely experiences acute stress reaction, leading to confusion and indecision, hallmarks of the freeze response. His inexperience and pressure to perform may have caused imposter syndrome or performance anxiety, contributing to his inability to give clear orders. Gorman also suffers from cognitive overload and tunnel vision, relying too heavily on tactical screens and failing to adapt to the chaotic reality on the ground. As a defense mechanism, he begins to blame shift onto Ripley for her unauthorized actions, a way to deflect responsibility for his own shortcomings. Drake and Vasquez continue to cover the retreat, with Drake wielding a flamethrower when his smart gun runs dry. Unfortunately, Drake is killed, and Hudson suffers a minor acid burn as the APC doors are closed. Ripley drives away, but in the rush, the APC transaxle is blown, leaving them temporarily immobile. Gorman is knocked unconscious during the escape, putting him out of the picture for the moment. As the dust settles, Hudson checks the team's life signs and is horrified to see Apone and Dietrich signals are low but still active. No mention is made of Wisbowski's fate, leaving his situation ambiguous. With Gorman now out of commission, a subtle but telling dynamic emerges between Burke and the rest of the group. Although Gorman was technically in command, it's clear he was under an unspoken obligation to follow Burke's lead. This arrangement appears to have been a company directive, only known to Gorman and likely intended to prioritize corporate interests over the Marines' and colonists' welfare. This hidden authority dynamic may explain Gorman's hesitation and reluctance to adapt his tactics, as if he's torn between military protocol and Burke's corporate demands. With the talk of exterminating the aliens and nuking the site, Burke exerts his authority he once had over Gorman, emphasizing the facility's high monetary value. When this argument fails, he shifts tactics, asserting that the xenomorphs are a more important species that shouldn't be arbitrarily wiped out, and claiming he can't authorize the use of nukes, with the full belief he has the last word, or maybe just a great poker face. Either way, he's then reminded that this is a military operation and he has no authority to make that call. With Gorman out of the picture, the Marines look to Hicks for leadership. In this moment, the conflicting priorities between corporate goals and military command are fully exposed, leaving Burke powerless as Hicks now takes command. Hopefully I've pointed out a few things you might have missed when watching the film and adding my own logical reasonings. However, the analysis doesn't end there. Rewinding a bit, in Ripley's court of inquiry testimony, she details multiple aspects of the alien creature, including its concentrated acid blood, a point she mentioned as a part of her general explanation rather than a tactical briefing. This insight wasn't properly leveraged. By the time the Marines were briefed, it was all incredibly rushed. No one had time to fully understand the threat. For instance, Vasquez misunderstood the assignment and thought they were dealing with illegal aliens, hinting that no one had been properly informed of what they'd be up against. Ripley had an opportunity to brief the Marines but missed a crucial chance to emphasize the danger of the acid blood. As an example in Alien, Parker immediately recognized the alien's defense mechanism, knowing that attacking it could have catastrophic consequences due to its acid blood. Yet the Marines seem oblivious. Gorman pretty much cuts Ripley off and says her account's on disk, but then gives the prepping orders, which sounds like it leaves very little time to properly prepare for the encounter they're all about to face. Even when the Marines see the acid damage around Hadley's Hope, no one takes the initiative to address this unique threat or prepare more adequately. When the Marines were ordered to hold fire within the cooling towers, it should have been a signal for Gorman to pull back and reconsider the mission plan. A tactical fallback or even the use of a remote drone could have been a safer approach. So yes, a catalogue of errors, one after another. Hindsight may be a wonderful thing, but I've done my best to point out what was actually known at the time and what information was ignored. If you've enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out and makes the hours of work worth it. See you next time.